Resolute. Stories of becoming, building, and balancing entrepreneurship from people closer to your climb. Hi, Laura.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. It's a good Monday.
Yeah, love a Monday. Tell me, before we get started, what's the biggest win you've had in the last 7 days?
I would say definitely taking a cold plunge every morning, because if you know me at all, I am not a winter person, at all. And if you think about it, it doesn't make any sense. Why would someone go and sit in the cold water, in the morning when it's super dark and super cold? But it's a mental win for me, a reminder every single day that, all right, Laura, you can handle uncomfortable things. And so, yeah, definitely that one.
Yeah, that's a routine that's hard to build. But once you do, it's intoxicating, the feeling you get after that.
Yeah, but I'm still looking for summer, so.
Looking forward to the summer months. Me too. All right. Today we're going to talk about your journey from an athlete to a CrossFit box owner, all the way to the creator of an app. We'll cover your favorite routines as a CEO of a content marketing driven company, and we'll talk about everything from becoming, building, and balancing entrepreneurship. But for now, let's take it all the way back to the beginning, let's talk about the very first steps of your journey. So, Laura, in your mind, are entrepreneurs born or made?
I think we're all born with a set of drivers that are connected to our natural strengths. And as an entrepreneur, you need to enjoy change. You need to enjoy uncertainty and being independent. And I think those things come more naturally for some of us. But then when it comes to actually becoming an entrepreneur, I think it's made. I think it's a skill set, and it takes years to build.
Yeah, so it's more so building on that skill set through experience versus something you're actually born with.
Yeah, definitely. Because even though you have those natural strengths, and some of us thrive in that entrepreneur life, maybe more naturally, you still need to grow into that role.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that didn't expect to become an entrepreneur, but yet thrive in that role. And so, yeah, I completely agree on that. Do you think there's talent still needed to that, to kind of sustain that uncertainty and that kind of drive and determination, or is that also something you can build?
I don't believe in talent. I think we're more like I said, we have those drivers that sort of set the things that makes us feel alive. And for some, those things that are connected to entrepreneurship, those are the things that really spark our eyes and make us feel the most alive. So in that way, yeah, you're kind of born with that sort of talent. But then when it comes to skills, and you can learn basically anything in life if you just put your mind to it.
I love that. Let's talk a little bit about your educational background. You didn't go to business school at all, right?
No.
What did you do growing up?
Well, I did horses when I was a kid, but I had quite traditional way of finding myself becoming a physiotherapist. I was an injured athlete, and I think in every class there is always at least a few of those that have some sort of connection to the sports and maybe been injured. So that was really the way I found myself studying to be a physio. So that is the really early journey that led me to being fascinated about human body, and then later on about performance. But then at school, we had, after the first year, we had the opportunity to choose whether we wanted to go on that more traditional way or more that entrepreneur sort of line where we actually had a real business with the students and the teachers in the school. And we got a lot of freedom, how to navigate through building different courses, what kind of projects did we want. And it was really different from the traditional part, but I really liked it, all the freedom and all the project stuff, but really did not enjoy any money related numbers. I was I don't want to be the financial person. So I kind of took my distance for those roles, but it was my first touch.
Was that kind of a path gearing you towards having your own practice as a physiotherapist?
Yeah, when I went to school, I was sure that I will be the best post-surgeon physio in the Finland. Like, that was the thing. I was going there, I had my mind, I had my goal. I was like, I'm going to be the first person those people meet when they come out of surgery. Then I did one internship at a hospital and I was like, yeah, no. Never.
Fuck this. Not for me. Okay. So what then? Then what happened after school? What were kind of the first jobs that you took on?
Well, during those summers when I was at school, I was also a group fitness instructor. So that the first year, that first summer when I got sort of a taste of how I can build my own schedules. Also, then I had this image that, being an entrepreneur, I don't actually have to work that much. And I was like, this is actually nice, having this freedom and relatively less working hours. But then I still had 1 year of school left. I got a phone call. It was 11th day of November in 2014. I still remember where I was. I was doing my workout at this one local gym, and I was asked to be a co-owner for a CrossFit box. And that was Tuesday. And at the same day, in the afternoon, I was having that meeting about, building that company, what it would look like. And at that same afternoon, I also had shake the hands, and I was like, yeah, I will become a CrossFit box owner.
So you went from being offered a partnership to closing that deal and becoming a part owner in the span of 1 day.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense. But for me in that moment, it made a lot of sense. I had this really strong intuitive feeling that if I miss out on this opportunity now, I would probably regret it. So I remember calling my dad, and he was like, "You did what?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to be an entrepreneur." And then he was like, "Do you have any realistic idea of what it's going to be like?"
Did they reach out to you because of a specific skill set you were going to add for the CrossFit box, or what was kind of the angle they were looking for in your role?
Yeah, so I was working at the same gym as a group fitness instructor and doing some personal training stuff alongside my studies, where as one of those future co-owners. So yeah, they were looking for another coach, basically. Right. So they needed 2 full-time coaches, and they wanted me to be the other one.
That's incredible. During those kind of early years of you becoming an owner of a business and still doing your studies, what were some of the things that people were misunderstanding about you or your character?
Well, I would say it was something that a lot of other people, but also myself, misunderstood, is that I can go to the end of the world in things, also in details when it's aligned with my goals. But also at the time, I think we all sort of thought that it carries across all things in life, and that I was seen in this really precise person across the board, like in every area of life. And that is in the really heart of me, like, who am I and how do I shine? That is not me. I need a lot of flexibility. I need a lot of change of structure, spontaneous things to feel alive. And in those times, I sort of put myself into that kind of box where I tried to be super precise across the board. And it put a huge mental load on me.
Right. So like everything you were doing, you were trying to kind of give it all or give it even a little bit more. And it wasn't really leaving room for the kind of spontaneous, creative side of you at all.
No. And I think at those times I was not that connected to maybe that side compared to now. But yeah, that was definitely a misunderstanding.
Do you think that realization came from learning through those experiences, or is this kind of growing up and becoming an adult?
It was also growing up, and also in 2019, 2020, sort of hitting a wall and having a really messed up nervous system, not being able to sleep. And then that stopped me to think about, okay, well, I have this huge drive in me and this power inside of me, but where do I need to like focus these things, and how do I take advantage of it in a right way so that I don't burn myself alive. So that was really a point where I needed to stop and think about like, how do I build a life that doesn't lead into the same situation again?
Right. It's like a loophole that you need to break in order to find success. You said you called your dad when you got this offer. Was he the person that influenced you to take this path?
Well, there is not really long-term entrepreneurship in our family or bloodline. My father used to do some things as an entrepreneur, but he didn't enjoy it that much. So I don't know where it actually came from, that courage to do that, because looking back, it really doesn't make any sense doing that sort of big decision without really thinking about it. But I think that is also that's who am I. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I think when we're younger, it's almost the best time to do those decisions on a whim, because, okay, you might lose a little bit of money or a little bit of time, but at the end of the day, you don't have, kids or a house or all of these things that you kind of give up. So I think, it's the best time to go on a whim and accept an incredible offer.
Yeah, I also think in my head, it was a really safe choice, because those two guys that I was then starting the company with, they were way more experienced than I was. So it was also this environment where I can pretty safely learn what it was like to build a business. So in my way of doing things, that was a good learning opportunity with not that a big risk.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. Having people to turn to and who kind of can be there along the journey. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can imagine that has a huge influence on your decision. What about today? Who are some of the people you look up to today?
Well, along the journey, I had the opportunity to work with Equestrain. That was the time when I was first putting up my first online coaching platforms, and I got to see from very close up what's it like to be the best in the world in something. And also to see that journey where you do it in your own way and you don't give up your sensitiveness or intuition, and you don't have to be a robot or super masculine to achieve something like that. So she had a huge positive impact on, I guess, how I look at the way, how I can build my life and still go for big goals in very my own way sort of thing. And then I think I have so many great people around me. I feel really lucky. I know it's not only luck, but it's something that I still feel really lucky about, that I have amazing people around me that inspire me every single day, just being who they are, but they're also very good at what they do, and in their heart, getting better every single day is who they really are. So yeah, there are many people in my close circle.
Are you conscious of the people you surround yourself with?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that, it's kind of a cliche saying, but like your vibe attracts your tribe. And I think your future is very dependent on who you surround yourself with. And so it's very, very interesting for you to say that.
Yeah, and I think when I look back, life is a curious thing. You have to live it forward to be then able to look back and connect the dots. But when I look back, the biggest shift in the speed of self-development really happened when I met my now husband, and then when I moved from Lahti to Espoo. So I sort of let that CrossFit Brogs owner thing behind me, started finding my way. What do I want to do next? Because I couldn't take that job with me. So if I wanted to build a life together, then I needed to find a way to work in a different way. And that was the time when I met one of my best friends, and who is now also my business mentor. And meeting him, I think, was one of those huge moments that sort of pivoted. Because during, at that time, I used to cry if I got a parking fee. You know, I was not this mentally strong. But like you said, surrounding yourself with people that can help you grow and also can show you what is possible, I think it has a huge effect.
Yeah, I think especially the latter where you say like helping you realize how much potential you have when you're maybe down or, you know, need that little extra boost. I mean, it's incredible the strength that they can give you. You said you had to move for these opportunities and you know, you met your now husband. Do you think you need to create space in some ways for opportunities to arrive into your life?
Yeah, I think it's always a balance of if you want something more or you want something new, you need to then let go of something. You can have it all, but you can't have it at the same time.
Yeah.
I love that sentence, but that was really the case in many situations for me also. Like, for example, this year.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate to that as a type A personality. I mean, 100%. Like, I'm always like, yeah, I can do anything. And then, oh, shit, I can't do it all at once. And it's a hard lesson to learn. And I feel like I keep learning it. But yeah, you're so right. Is there a piece of advice that has stuck to you to this day that you've learned maybe along the way?
My father has always spoken about how people notice if you put in your best effort, no matter what the job is, even on those things that maybe only you can see and when no one is watching. He is very handy. He can like build houses and stuff. So always, even those little details that are going to be invisible from outside, he always does those to the greatest detail because he knows that he put them there and that they are well done, even though no one is ever going to see it from the outside. So I think that mentality of giving your best effort and not overlooking things, like, oh, this is not something that I need to put a good effort. I think it was a really good learning from already young age.
Yeah, that's some great advice from your dad. When did you realize, or was there like an exact moment when you realized you wanted to become an entrepreneur? Was it that call you received or maybe even in your second business? What was the moment you were like, okay, this risk is worth all the shit and the hard work and the stress that comes along with it?
I think in my mind, the CrossFit box thing was like having a job. Like it was, I was an entrepreneur, but it was, like I said before, it was so safe space that it was really more the decision to move and leave that job behind and then being like, okay, well, what the hell am I going to do now? And in that moment, I think I then stepped into that true entrepreneurship.
Right.
Because I was alone then. I didn't have
There's no one to turn to. You started PAC program. What were the takeaways that you took from owning a CrossFit gym to this online business that you did next?
It was the community, really community first aspect that comes along with the CrossFit. It is so powerful when people want to be part of something. That, you have a good product. And also with the PAC program, that was the first time I had the courage to challenge like the status quo, that kind of way. A little bit of those old ways, how things have always been done before, and bringing in something new with my own coaching philosophy. That was the first time I also had the courage to do that. So combining those two things and then following how it grew into be one of the biggest online coaching brands in Finland for CrossFit, it was a good learning curve to the job I do now.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about it. What on earth is Equestrain and why hasn't it been done before in the equestrian industry?
So simply put, we help riders to answer the question, how should I train to become better as a rider? And for that, we have a tailor-made app platform that individualizes your workout plan based on your riding discipline. How do you feel in the saddle? What equipment do you have? And also how many workouts it's actually possible to have in your schedule, because life with horses is sometimes more or less busy. So basically it's having your sports performance coach in your pocket.
But what is the reason that sports performance or tailored coaching hasn't really been done before? Because in riding, you have a show jumping coach, you have a dressage coach, and we've got massage therapist and acupuncturist for the horses. But what happened to the rider? Why it's an Olympic sport? Why aren't we treating it like one?
I believe there is two reasons behind that. First one being the awareness, like the really bigger awareness of the benefits of the rider actually doing, let's say, workouts off the saddle to improve their performance. It has started on that bigger scale only like 4 years ago. So there has been a little bit more PR, there has been a little bit more studies made, which have made this topic more public. But just being public with the topic doesn't really mean that the sport itself is ready for the change. And like you said, it's the oldest Olympic sport, which also kind of means that it's quite traditional sports. And creating the change in that environment takes time. And then the second one is to really feel as a rider that this is part of who I am. This is part of my journey as a rider. It needs to seamlessly fit into that lifestyle. And there has to be a really strong connection between the workout and riding, and having someone that really can then build that into a product or a brand, or to be that coach that talks the same language. I think that is the way, if we want to root it into the sport so that it sort of lives on. And having that skill set is quite unique. And now there are emerging more coaches as, like I said, the knowledge and the studies and everything is getting further. But I don't know, like 5 years ago, there probably just wasn't anyone that had all that understanding. And then also having an understanding of, okay, well, this is how you can actually build a brand around it.
Right. Yeah, I think it's kind of the trickiness around that industry. It's such a lifestyle sport. I mean, you're so focused on the well-being of the horses and the schedule of the barn that you just simply don't have time or the energy to, firstly, not even to, just to think about the business side of things, but then let alone to think about, okay, how can I be a better athlete when all the time is put into, okay, how do we develop these horses, the string of horses you have for the next games? So yeah, I mean, it's a huge challenge. Let's talk a little bit about finding investors and the financial backing you needed to get started. I mean, obviously, building an app is expensive. What did you do to get started?
Well, I must say I'm in quite privileged situation because we were able to find the money from really close from the family. So I've had those discussions with investors, and it was very interesting learning experience. And still up to this date, we're keeping our eyes open for those right kind of people that might be interested in investing us. But in the beginning, we got this. I didn't get money. I got a loan, so I'm going to have to pay it back one day. But that was really how it got started.
That's amazing. What did the first versions of Equestrain look like?
Well, obviously, at that point when we were building it, we were like, oh, this is amazing. This is because it was the best we could do in the moment with the knowledge that we had. The first version was really generic. So there was no individualization built within the app. And then we did a survey round approximately 3 months after the launch. And it was really clear that that is what they want. So then in August, we did a first big update, introducing those individualization tools. But the first one was really like generic, one size fits all.
What was one thing that you think you needed in the beginning of launching the app, but you actually didn't at all to get to where you are today?
I think I believed that I needed more help with the brand, and I got some help and I also bought some help, which was again a good learning experience. But in the end of the day, we didn't really, out of all that material that we had from that rebranding and the brand book that we built, we ended up basically using the colors and the logos. So it was more the process of me understanding that, well, I actually know quite well what this brand feels like. And yeah, I would say that was that.
You moved away from the Finnish market to become a global company and to serve riders across the world. What was that like? And did you get any criticism along the way?
Yeah, we had been operating in Finland for 2 years for that point, and it was really scary. There has been 2 scary moments during this journey. First one was when we launched, the very first Instagram post that I did back in February 21. I was with my shaking hands, okay, I'm just going to post it and see what happens. That was really scary because I sort of had a name in CrossFit world. Because I used to compete there. They knew me as an athlete, but they also knew me as a coach. And then in the riding world, I had my own horse. The goal was to compete with her. So I was on this edge of questioning, do I really want anyone to know my name again? Or do I just want to grow as an athlete, grow as a rider, and have that private space? Because everything, I felt so big part of my life was so public. But then I was okay, I'm just gonna have to do this. I feel that I'm the right person to do this. So then I just posted that first post, which was amazing, obviously, in my mind at the time. And now looking back, it was not that amazing. But so yeah, that was the first scary moment. And the second one was when we needed to change the language to English. And in that moment, we had a good, loyal customer base here in Finland, but we have been doing everything in Finnish. So obviously, if we wanted to reach the global audience and grow into being this global brand, we needed to get rid of the Finnish language. And that was in my head, I was I'm going to lose everyone. I'm going to no one
hate you for it.
Everything is going to go so shit. So it was really scary, but yeah, there were some people that were very disappointed with that decision. And we got a lot of requests of, could you maybe have 2 Instagram accounts, one in Finnish, one in English? Maybe you can do everything in both languages. And I was do you have any idea how much work that is? So then sticking to the decision of having everything in English was the
right thing to do.
Go,
yeah, I think this is one of those moments where you have to create space for new opportunities, and it's a tough decision to say we're making this big change, and you're going to upset some people, but then knowing that in the long term it's the right move. And so I think that's kind of the courage you're talking about having.
Yeah, and I think also what I hope Finnish people had a little bit more, because here we have sort of rooted into our culture that if you're Finnish, we need to be served in Finnish, we need to have these services and products in Finnish, but also it can be our thing. We can have that, this is our thing, and we're proud to take it out to the world,
right?
And stand behind it together, even though the language is now English, because when we have that English language, we can invite in everyone basically in the world. But if we have Finnish, it's really exclusive. No one can come in from the outside. And from the very beginning, the goal for us was to leave a legacy, have an impact, a positive, big impact. And for that, you need a big platform. So that is really the biggest driver there, making the change to go global.
Absolutely. Talk a little bit about finding partners to work with. You had an incredible app development team. You worked with some other vendors, and your kind of core team you work with today. How have you found the right people, and what were the takeaways from that?
For me, it's always an energy thing. I somehow feel in that moment instantly if it just clicks, and I lean into that very intuitively, because I think in such early stages as we are in, obviously the app developers, they have really clean role. They know what they do and they don't have to do anything else. But then the other people in the team that are helping me, it's this one wild adventure where we don't really have like, this is your thing, this is my thing. Like everyone does basically everything. So you need to have that ability to handle change and be comfortable with fast pace, and also then with the different roles, sort of, that you're not just doing one thing, but you actually have to be comfortable of also learning new things quite fast.
It's a mindset thing.
Yeah.
So do you believe in finding people that are alike to your character, or more so kind of complementing what you lack?
Well, when you want to build a winning team, because work team, like a sports team, you can't just clone yourself, because then you end up with a team that have the exact same blind spots, and it's not great. And so when in the team, we look for people that have different strengths, that they can thrive and shine in those different roles. And then also I need to have at least one person that is really like me, that can keep up with the pace of ideas and creativity and feel really comfortable with that. And also in the early stages, having that independent approach into your role is really helpful, because I don't have time to hold hands all the time. You need to be really comfortable just getting a direction like that way,
and then go
with this, and then you're like, okay, good to go, and then you can
initiative. Yeah, absolutely. Equestrain has a really strong brand, and you kind of pride yourself in learning the ropes of guerrilla marketing through experience. You've taken on some really, really interesting brand partners. What's some of the most important things that you look for in that space?
It's the value connection. So it is something beyond the product. Obviously, you also need to love the product that the brand has, and it needs to bring value also for your target group and your customers. But in the heart of that collaboration is really the alignment in the values, the vision, the sort of vibe, I would say. We always go for both of those things. First, we need to love the product. It needs to bring high value for our customers. Then the vibe needs to be there.
The right vibe. I love it. It's such a content marketing driven firm that you've built. Talk to me a little bit about the process. I mean, what is the best kind of content, and how the heck are you creating so much of it?
So yeah, most of my time goes into creating content. So basically I feel like we're a media house. But we look at the content in sort of in two buckets. We have growth content that is really created to bring attention to the brand, lure in new audience, get those new eyes in. So there is a certain type of content that performs well, and we always go for high engagement when we plan for growth content, meaning that the metrics that we look are how many people are saving the content. Do they want to go back, or are they sharing it? Is it something funny? Is it something that is so shareable that then you just feel like, oh, I need to share this with someone? But mostly we go there for educational content that speaks to the pain points, the problems that our audience has, and giving them some solutions so they can then feel that, oh, this brand, this account, it has value in it. And also Instagram algorithm, it's not working against us. It's working actually for us when you can consistently show the algorithm that, hey, I'm creating this content that actually brings value for the followers. So then also the algorithm rewards you from that type of content. And that's why it's good for the growth, because it then brings new eyes organically to your content, and you can grow in the numbers of followers. And then we have that like sort of convert content, where is then the journey of kind of nurturing that audience into becoming that brand loyal community. And there we have also different types of content from behind the scenes, sharing the journey, really bringing that human-like feeling that there is actually people behind the brand, so that we would get the effect that actually people are on our side. They want us to succeed. They want to cheer for us. And then sharing stories from the riders that are using the app, that are in our team, making it visible that the change that they're looking for is actually quite within the reach, because then you can share those stories. Oh, this is how it was before. This is what I struggled with. But now with Equestrain, we're actually doing this. And now I have this. Like, you can bring those stories to life. And then also trying to show why our unique way of doing things, like what sets us apart from others in our own way. So those things really then go into like those two different buckets, and then inside of those we have different strategies.
I love it. You mentioned BTS. One of the big questions I always get in my work is, should I invest in a professional photographer or a videographer, or, are we good to film on the phone? What's the right time to do either?
Well, when you have so much money that you want to spend it on someone following around with the camera, I would love that. We're definitely not there. So we're doing everything ourselves. Having a good iPhone, it's basically everything that you need. If you want to be pro, you can have a mic on it. But yeah, no need for professional photographers or filmmakers. Especially in the beginning, you should maybe invest that money to marketing or the product itself.
I love that. You mentioned riders sharing their stories and kind of the value that they've gotten from doing the workouts. What are your tips to getting more UGC content to your brand?
Well, we have a strategy for that. I'm quite proud of it, actually. We wanted to improve our team rider program a lot over the summer, and we wanted to go value first for the team riders. So it is actually not even content driven, but it is driven by the fact that we want to be there for the riders. We want to create a system, because in this sport we have so many great systems when it comes to riding itself, and then developing the rider, like the mental side of things, the physical side of things, the nutrition, everything. There is nothing. And I was like, okay, well, we're going to build something. And we go really heavy on that for the team riders. And we put a lot of focus on finding right kind of people that really share the same energy. They believe in the vision that we have. And then inside of that, because we have such a big group of riders, there is already almost 50 riders across the globe. Then we have shared, like divided that big mass of riders into groups, which means that their turn to create content comes around maybe 3 or 2 times a year. And then our team rider manager that also handles the content, then she always contacts them like, this is now your time to create content with us. We always provide clear examples and options. You can choose from these, which one feels the most natural for you. Then they pick one, then they create the content itself, but they don't have to edit. They don't have to, have something ready-made. We want to make it as frictionless as we can. Then they provide those clips and photos, whatever their type of content was. And then we put it together, we edit it, and then we post it in our feed. And we can also do it as a cross-share for their account. But we have this really good system behind it, so that we're actually then maximizing the positive effect that we get.
I love that line, creating or making it as frictionless as possible. That's, I think, especially for people who are busy with their work, for them it's horses. Being involved with brands like yours is a big time commitment, and it can be quite daunting for someone who hasn't necessarily done it before, or who hasn't been, who doesn't see themselves as a social media person necessarily. So I love that you've kind of really put effort into making it as value driven as possible and easy as possible for them.
Yeah, and I think also there having those different types of content, because for some it can be that you just provide a few pictures and like I've written greetings like, hey, this is how my life has been past 3 weeks. I've been doing these kind of workouts. That can be it. And if you're more comfortable of creating that content, then you can also, okay, well, I want to do a my day. I want to do it with a voiceover. And that can be a perfect content piece for someone else. But trying to fit everyone into that same sort of box is, then they
doesn't get you far.
And then they just stop responding to messages.
No, I can completely understand that. You also have quite a big following, and you even did before when you were a CrossFit athlete. And there's a lot of equestrian content that's driven around the community. But you're also quite often on the stories and posts. What's the right kind of vulnerability for social media? How have you found that balance between sharing enough to be intriguing and interesting and not sharing too much?
I think it's always a question and a line that is moving. And for me, I've been doing that for so many years that it sort of comes naturally. I keep the line away from my personal relationships and like that side of life that I want to keep some sort of privacy. But then also being able to talk about some of the challenges, I think it's important because all of us have them. And I really also, as an athlete, I remember I always followed the most the people that really showed what it was like. And now, for example, with my own social media, I just see it as a supportive pillar for Equestrain, having that sort of founder account. There I can share what's it like to build an app business, because we are a tech business. And if you try to find an interesting founder account in the tech that you're a female founder, I can tell you there's a hard to find. So I also want to then provide that space for other female founders to have that sort of relatable content and thoughts.
Yeah, I love it. I love being able to connect with people that are alike, but also who might end up becoming like you. You talked a lot about processes and systems when it comes to creating the content. There's so much that you can be doing. How are you prioritizing your time?
For each year, we set what we call must-wins. Those are 3 main big umbrellas that really then determine the things that we say yes and definitely the things that we say no to. So this year, this was our first year in this global market with the product. It taught us that it's really difficult to see the future. It's so early stages that it's really hard to say what's going to happen. So when it comes to goal setting, it's more or less shady. You really don't know. You have to adjust a lot. So then having those umbrellas that guide your decisions are the first pillar that I lead into. And then I always look at the year and the goal setting in seasons, so in 2 or 3 month periods, really then determining what is the most important thing in this season. Right now, for example, we are in this building phase. We're putting a lot of focus on building the next update. So that is really important in this season. And it means that we're going to have to cut off something else to create that time. And then I bring that seasonal thinking to monthly level to really have that clear focus. And most of the times it's learning to say no. And one of the latest things actually was that for the whole fall, we did double posts in Instagram. Organically, our views went over 2 million. It was really great. But now we need to put a little bit more focus, focusing on how to organize events going into 25, that app development process, a little bit more of that nurturing the community type of content. So we're going to drop down to 1 post a day, which is probably going to bring our organic views down. But it's the right decision in this moment because there is only a certain amount of hours that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. You've created quite the community. How are you, what are your top tips to create culture in a digital world where you're never most likely seeing a lot of these people face to face?
Well, it has been definitely the hardest part. I would say it's not super simple and it's not super easy, and you need to be really constantly in touch of remembering to do those things. And I think one of the most valuable things is giving people your time and not expecting like anything back, because that is there has to be things that you do without that transactional sales driven thought in your mind. But
you're right. I give first before asking.
Yeah,
it's a good principle.
And I'm really looking forward to 25 because we're gonna put a more focus on that. So
are there certain elements in the app space that you think create authentic connection with these customers that you're looking to build more in next year?
Right now in our app, we don't actually have any features for that would actually drive that community. So that is also one of the reasons why it has been so tricky, because we're forced to navigate through social media and email marketing, which is a little bit more distant still. But right now, when we're building the update, we're also putting a lot of focus on what kind of like messaging channels can we build into the app, and also what kind of exclusive things we can provide for the existing members. How can we reward them from the loyalty that they have for the brand? For example, this Christmas, we looked up all the people that have been on board since February and March. So they're our longest, they had spent the longest time with us. So then we reached out to them like, hi, we would like to send you a surprise. And then we sent out some t-shirts and a handwritten note just to show that we're really grateful of having them here.
That you see them.
Yeah, because it is also very easy in the early stages when you have those revenue goals, you have that pressure also on your shoulders to bring in money to, for example, keep up with that process of developing the product. It is so easy to just focus on getting those new clients and driving in new people and getting those numbers up. But you also need to remember those people that are already there, and providing something that is only for them is super important.
That's a hard balance to find, giving enough time and attention to them while you're still trying to catch up on revenue when you've got to cover these major investments. And yeah, it's a hard line to walk. Laura, you're incredibly hardworking. What propels you forward when the days are difficult?
For me, the boring answer would be that I have this drive in me and I am super goal-orientated. Yeah, that is who I am. But in those moments, I often pick up the phone and I have 3 people in my circle that are so like me. They are like my soulmates when it comes to that energy frequency and the mindset that they have and how they are built. So I always then pick up the phone and call someone, so that is the way that I recharge. I share the struggle with someone that really sees me, and I don't have to explain anything. I don't have to make my feelings smaller. I don't have to make it a nice package. I can just
be who you are.
I am and show all the emotion that I have, whether it's frustration or uncertainty, or I just don't believe in myself in that moment, because those are also the people that probably believe in me more than I do. So yeah, I always pick up the phone.
Yeah, it's good to lean on people and remember that they're there for that very reason.
Yeah.
you talk a lot about building your business and self-development and, becoming the best version of yourself. I find that occasionally I feel a little bit of shame or guilt to always wanting more. And that's kind of some of the struggles that I battle with. Constantly feeling like I want to improve and in a way that drives me forward, and I'm kind of like obsessed with the chase. What's your take on that?
Yeah, having that obsessive mind is hard from time to time. And I also feel that isolation, and sometimes that I need to make myself smaller or like bring it down a notch so that it's more relatable. But then I think the game changer for me was to just find a few more people that are just like me. And then make sure that from time to time I have time to spend with them. So then I feel that this is completely normal.
Yeah, I feel like if you constantly feel like you need to belittle yourself or show a little less of that enthusiasm, I think that's a good sign to potentially look a little bit further and seek if you can find people that are supporting that journey versus kind of causing you to hide it or push it down.
Yeah, and different people are great for different situations. And I also love those really laid back friends that we have that are just so nice to be around because there is no stress in the world. And then you don't end up talking about business with them because it's just not a thing that you share. So having also those people are super important, but I think not to be ashamed of, always wanting a little bit more and looking for the next thing, just feeling that connection with someone who really gets it. Like, I mean, in a way that you can feel that every single cell in their body, that they just get it.
Yeah.
You need that.
Yeah, 100%. You're a lover of routines. Talk to me a little bit about what you do on kind of the day-to-day basis, managing your schedule to your, workouts and your creative time and all of that. What does the process look like?
Yeah, I love routines because they take me towards my goals, and handling this circus that some would call my life, I need routines. I need have that structure that I can actually get something done. And when it comes to the foundation, your health and your well-being, really, I think that is the foundation that you then can do whatever you want in the world, but that needs to be there. And for me, one of the strongest motivators is that I also want to lead by an example, that you can be a really ambitious, goal-driven entrepreneur, reach for really big things we're talking about global scale, and you can still be you can have your well-being and not kind of sacrifice that, because I think that is also something that really easily happens. People go all in for the business and then they end up not taking care of themselves. So it's a hard balance, and I've had to put some really strict rules for myself to not start working at 7 a.m. because I could also do that. I could go in for 12 hours a day. That would be
so
just
hard.
Fine. But so I've set those ground rules for myself when it comes to, I try to do 2 gym workouts per week. I try to do 2 cardios per week, and that is the baseline. And then on top of that, keeping up with my nutrition. I can also go a whole day and not eat because I get
the deep work mode.
I get so pulled into my work. But having that discipline and dedication of, I want to feel good because I know then I can also perform better. So this is like being an athlete, but it's just in the business world for me. So I think a lot of those routines come from the time I was so dedicated for CrossFit. I was living that athlete life. So those things, sleeping 8 hours a day, 8 hours every night, keeping up with that movement. Your body needs movement to feel good, and nutrition. Those baselines really come from that time and just trying to carry them around.
Yeah, I think it's so true, especially if you're a business owner, certainly on the small business side or even a solopreneur. You're thrown with so many things that you need to be doing, and your schedule is just kind of, it's controlled by someone else. So having that control and putting your time and focus into the non-negotiables and the things that, you know, that will propel you forward gets you quite far, and it gets you kind of out of that rut that helps you move forward. So completely agree.
Yeah, and beginning of this year, the biggest change came from this one very simple rule that I set for myself, and it was you're not allowed to work before 9:30 a.m. and I still try to wake up at around 6:36. So then I have 3 hours. And what am I going to do? You're not allowed to work. So then I do my workout in that window, or just FaceTiming a friend, or just playing PlayStation, whatever that I feel that I need to then have my battery fully recharged and go for the day. That was the biggest change for me.
Does that set a different tone to your day when you start it with something that's lighthearted and kind of fun almost for you, versus diving into the emails? Or, I mean, that's fun in another way as well, but what does that do to the tone of the day?
I think for me, it's most about I get to do things that are really selfishly for me. Because that may sound a little bit weird, but as a coach, you're giving away your energy. You're giving away so much of yourself for the others to help them. Also now leading a team, handling so many things at once. I need those things that recharge who I am. And for me, one of the most efficient ways is to do something that is only for me.
I love that. I think we should all do a little bit more of selfish things when it comes to kind of prioritizing your life and being able to give more as a result. I think that's kind of the big misconception, is when you're doing things for yourself, whether it's kind of the fun stuff, the creative stuff, sports, nutrition, you know, the narrative is that no, this is you're not able to then focus on other people. But I think actually you can show up better for others once you've done that.
Yeah, and I also then always know when I have pushed my limits too far, and because the instant feeling that I get is please don't send me a single message that requires me giving some sort of help as an answer. So I'm a really social person. I love being around people, and I need those connections to feel recharged. But then I know if that helping limit sort of gets full, I need that, okay, now I need to plug in and do things that I know instantly recharge that.
I love that. What's something that they don't tell you about the life of an entrepreneur?
That you can build it in a way that you feel really alive, because I think in your mind you can choose whether you want to see it as a battle and a uphill, and that you're fighting your way through the early stages, that when you don't, for example, in the startup world or any business that you're just starting, you're really short on resources and you're short on time, and you need to handle a lot of that by yourself. I think you can either decide to see that as a challenge or as an adventure. And the situation is still the same. But if you look at it as, okay, this is an adventure, this is actually exciting, it changes the energy that you have. It changes how people feel around you. It changes how you feel about what you're doing. And a lot of times the narrative that we get is, you don't have vacation, you work really long hours, it's hard, you have a lot of risks. Yeah, that is also true. But that is also an adventure. And that has changed everything for me.
I love that. It's just a switch in tone and a huge impact.
Yeah.
If you could change one thing about the way the business world works for entrepreneurs, what would it be?
I think in Finland we need more of things together. I wish we did more things together, because there is kind of this lonely wolf mentality where people are sitting behind their desks alone trying to push through. Yeah, CISO is a great thing and we need that and we should embrace it, but we should also share experiences more, because that is the best way you can learn. I wish we had more of that.
Yeah, I can completely agree and resonate with that. There are so many people out there who are thinking about taking the plunge, whether they're on the journey to becoming a startup founder, or maybe they're in a big job right now, but thinking about leaving, or just younger kids wanting this path for themselves. What concrete action should they take to make the first leap?
Look for things that make you feel alive, because there is always something in there. And then you can look at the market, what's in there, draw across and make the analysis of what's out there, and then see how that thing that makes you feel alive fits into that picture. Where could be this opportunity for you? And when you spot that empty space, then next thing is to figure out, is that empty for a reason that it's impossible to make, or that it's just empty because no one hasn't yet done it? I think that is a good starting point. And then also for every ambitious young entrepreneur especially, I always encourage to look for things that also make you feel alive outside of that job. Because once you get pulled in, if you have that obsessive mind and it is so all consuming that there is a risk that you sort of forget to live your life and your work becomes who you are. So having that connection to also those things, those moments in life that make that same spark inside of you as your work, as the job, as the calling that you have, it is so important, because then that wakeboard, it doesn't flip, because you have that counterbalancing element, and it can be anything, but it needs to be there, and also there to be brave and really listen to your heart, what that is. Because, for example, for me, from time to time, I need time that I can turn off my phone, spend some time with people that share that same frequency. But we go out, we dance, we stay up until the sunrise, we eat pizza at 5 a.m. And it doesn't really make any sense if you look at it from the recovery perspective, but it's just a thing, the freedom of choice in that moment. I don't have to be anything for anyone, and complete intuitive drive of doing whatever we feel like in that moment. That's one thing. Then spending time with animals and doing my sports and everything, those are the things that counterbalance the obsession so that we don't burn ourselves alive. So I think that is super important.
I love that. And I think that is the core, the best part of entrepreneurship, is that you have basically the freedom to create an adventure that is looks like you and looks like the things that you value and hold dear, and it doesn't need to look like anyone else's. And to me, entrepreneurship is the vessel that allows that. And I find that that's the key to kind of, we talk about kind of designing your dream life, but in the end, it's just an enabler that takes you on that journey.
Yeah, and of course it's hard work. You need to be up late, you need to be up early to go after those dreams that you have. But then don't lose that childlike love that you have for the things that you wanted to do. Like, don't lose that, because always when things get more serious or bigger, we feel that need to be more professional. But you can have that childlike playness in that game, because that also is one of the elements that I think that enables you to do it long enough that you can actually build success. Because building success is not very complicated. It's showing up every single day, having a direction to work towards to, but then you need to show up mostly every single day. You can have those vacations and day offs, of course, but you need to show up longer than the average person, because there is a reason why not everyone is on the top. And the top is reserved for the ones that are willing to put in a little bit more. And it's not the intensity in this moment. It's the long game. It's a marathon. It's playing in decades and committing yourself to that. Then you need to really enjoy what you're doing and having that play.
Yeah, that stamina comes from doing the things that you actually truly like. And I think also in not only in entrepreneurship, but in the business world in general, I think you're more approachable, likable, and more likely to be able to close deals and do some and find some success when you're authentically yourself. I think a lot of people have the misconception as to, okay, now I'm in this phase of my career or as a business owner or whatnot, and I need to look a certain part or talk a certain way. But I think the more authentic you are to your character, the more likable you are as a result.
Yeah, and maybe one thing is that document the journey in some way, because there will be
this is the content.
Not only a content, I also have a 5-year diary, where you can write a few lines every single day, and then you can see on one page a 5-year timeline, because there will be a time when you want to go back and remember how that felt. So I'm really looking forward to being 5 years from now and then opening up the diary and saying, oh, that day 5 years ago, ooh, I was going through that.
I love that. Yeah, I think those moments fly by and we often forget or don't even have the time to reflect. So that's a great tool. Laura, as a last question, tell me a little bit about the legacy that you're going to leave behind.
I want riding as a sport in the future, that it's normal, it's part of the sport, that from very early age, we as riders, we take care of our body, we do other things than only riding, just like in football, just like in Formula One, just like in any other big sport. It's part of who we are. And with Equestrain, it's bigger than us, it's bigger than the brand. I want to leave that behind, so that even when one day someone would magically make that brand away, it would still live on, the footprint that we left, and we were one of the elements in that change. And for me, as an entrepreneur, I want people to remember that I talked about the things with my eyes sparkling. I still had time for my friends and my family. I loved sports. I loved what I did, no matter what I was doing, but I always leaned towards those things. And I hope that people around me feel that my energy is pure. And I try to do all those decisions from that. So yeah, I hope that is what I leave behind.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.